It's not logical that stuff can be here and that we don't know how to not be assholes to each other without a god. Apparently, there needs to be a floaty cloud being, or else none of this makes sense. Of course, you and I don't think that, but there's a guy on the internet that does think that, and also knows how to destroy atheism with a few questions. Hello, I'm the Skeptic, the British floating circle that watches people make extraordinary claims and then I explain why I don't accept what they're saying. Reeves Rants is a small channel where he explains where all the lies are in the political world. Well, that was until he made this video, Atheism being destroyed with a few questions. Now, I don't know if he realises that the only way to actually destroy atheism is to just demonstrate a god, which I don't think you can do by asking questions, but perhaps it's a good idea to give everyone a chance at making atheism go away, since it's so very irritating. But before we discover how to destroy atheism, if this isn't your first Skeptic video, hit the like, the subscribe and the bell, and maybe we can destroy the algorithm together. And a super thanks to those that hit super thanks in some recent videos. Condor Boss, Kaina Tiona, and Real Pumpkin J. And a big thank you to channel members who get access to pretty awesome Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe and more hen emojis. Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe bestows leaves upon you all. More hen. Questions that destroy atheism, huh? Do you believe that, really? Was that a question?
This is the thing when we talk about what is moral. So quite often they'll say, well, the thing you're describing, that's all well and good, but it's not morality. Fine, then I don't care about morality.
Damn! I'm not going to sit here and try to prove to you some God of the Bible or some Jesus Christ.
Well, Reevesy, that's really the only way you can destroy atheism. Prove the supernatural deity or its supernatural son exists, and atheists can't not believe in it or them. Simples.
What I am going to try to prove to you is that we need to believe in a creator, because the idea that we did all this on our own and that we can decide a moral structure on our own is not logical.
That we did what on our own? Got to the point where we can make videos on the internet saying that we couldn't have got to the point of making videos on the internet without some invisible wizard giving us the power to do so. I don't know, I feel like we did, since there's nothing to suggest the wizard is real. And you need a wizard to tell you what to do and to not be shitty. Can't manage that on your own? Makes you kind of shitty.
And even in the clip I just showed you, Matt Dillahunty, one of the top atheist humanists of the time right now,
whose name sounds pretty cool when you say it like that.
Matt Dillahunty admits the fact that morals don't even really matter. The only reason why atheists or humanists pretend to have morals is because if they admitted to everybody that they don't, then you'd realize how terrible this idea really is. And this dumb idea that atheism or humanism or, any anti-God belief system works.
What do you mean? I don't believe in a god. I try not to do terrible things because, for the most part, I'm not a terrible person. I can figure out how not to be a terrible person without the need for a god to tell me what to do. I make better choices than the God of the Bible anyway, because I've never genocided an entire civilization, never ended the life of a man for not jizzing in an ex of mine, and never supported the owning of people.
In a world where morals are expected, just doesn't make any sense.
2 + 2 = 4 is the analogue of all human beings are worthy of provision and protection. All of them. Right? Would you agree with that? All members of the human family, no matter what their achievements, no matter what their attributes, all members of the human family are worthy of all provision and protection.
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
People who believe in a creator believe that human beings have value.
That's not what was asked, though. He said something about being worthy of protection. And if human beings have value, why do so many religiouses go anti-gay, anti-mothers having a choice, anti-trans? It seems like some people only have value when it suits the God believers.
And we're seeing that atheism and humanism and all this non-belief crap can't even tell you if human beings have value or not.
What do you mean by value, though? Because it does seem that there are certain values put on people when they're sold through the slave trade. Does an ant in Kenya have the same value as an ant in Canada? What about from the ant's perspective?
But at the same time telling us they have morals and they have a whole belief system that tells us how we should live our lives.
You have to point to something where they're adding value to society.
Is that what
So they have to achieve, they have to add value. But they don't have value.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying when I say that there's no intrinsic value to it, but
Right.
that I value.
So in other words, if Matt Dillahunty or other humanists like him or atheists or just non-believers, because that's really what they are, is just non-believers, is that all of these non-believers, then they decide whether you add value to the system or not.
Who said that? I, as a non-believer, don't say that you, Revo, should live life the way I think it should be lived. But goddos do seem to be telling everyone else how to live their lives, because this is what the bearded bossy boots says you should do. Mate, if you go around killing people and everyone else did the same, that isn't going to be helpful for the long-term survival of the species. You just have to use your brain a little.
And if you don't add value, then they may decide that you're not needed any longer. And this is what we've seen over and over and over again with history of atheism. I mean, that's really what Hitler was an atheist, but he pretended, to carry some religion because religion is able to bring people behind it a little bit easier.
So that's how they deal with now. He pretended he was religious. Oh, jeez.
Stalin was an atheist who basically made religion illegal. Mao was the same thing. That's what we see from atheists nowadays, is this idea that they want to illegalize religion. They want to abolish it. They want to see it exterminated. These are the words that atheists use, or humanists, whatever you want. It's non-believers.
I don't think religion should be abolished. I do think folks should stop treating it like a penis no one wants to see and quit waving it around in public and then using their appendages to dictate how others live their lives.
As I said. But here we go. They don't even accept the fact that people have value. You have to bring something to the table. That is a very dangerous way of thinking about things, because me and believers, we all think that you bring a value to this world regardless of what you bring into it. You just being a human being is the value you bring to this world, and therefore you get to stay alive.
Are you really that dumb that you think non-believers think people don't deserve to be alive? We probably, for the most part, live exactly the same way. I just don't pretend that an invisible man told me how to do things.
But atheists tend to do this kind of argument where, well, I believe in morals, and I think that we should have a moral structure, and we ought to treat each other a certain way. We ought to do things a certain way. But if you don't bring a value to the system, then I ought not to treat you that way that I was just talking about.
What atheists say that? This is the first time I've ever heard it put that way, and I've been an atheist all my life. My membership's fully paid up too.
And this is the problem, is that we just keep pretending as though atheism is anything more than just an anti-humanist. It's really anti-human.
Is it? I thought it just meant not believing in a god. Man, I am learning loads about myself. What kind of underwear do I prefer, since you know more about me than I do?
It is anti-human values. It disguises itself as pretending as though, I support whatever the thing is. Whatever the thing is.
25 plus and Naked Thursday. I do support 25 plus Naked Thursday.
Whoever's in power is what atheists go with.
No, there are some morons all over the world right now running countries terribly. I don't go with them. Do you just make up lies?
And the good is simply defined by what you regard as the measure of human well-being, and anything that basically points us in that direction counts
and it's not
as the moral.
And it's not fully defined or anything else.
Hey man, do you drive to work, or does somebody drop you off? You know what I mean?
If the person in power, say the Hitler, simply has a very different conception of what the best is for his life compared to your life, then do you have any moral if you like, force to say you're doing something wrong? Isn't he just going with his preferences as opposed to your preferences?
Yes.
Then how can you argue that you have a moral belief system that matters?
Easy. I don't think that it's ever a good idea to gas people in chambers. And I'm not a c***. How is that difficult for you to grasp? Would the actions of a German d*** be okay with you if it was written in the Bible that someone else performed the exact same way? Because, newsflash, the God did that, and commanded people to do it on its behalf a few times too. You don't get to say it's wrong when the being you believe in supposedly did it too.
Because if someone more powerful than you tells you that your moral system doesn't matter, then they can take you out and do whatever they want. And your moral system means absolutely nothing to them then.
That's why people revolt. Do you just ignore everything that goes on in the world?
It's just words that you said and you're no longer here to care about anymore. And who cares what you think if they ought to do something? If there isn't really a God to do anything on the backside and to hold people accountable for some imaginary justice that you think they should be held accountable for.
What? That's what you believe. People hold people accountable. That's why there's law systems in place with punishments available for those that go against the well-being of the species. No gods needed, my man.
It's all just in your head. Unless you believe in a God.
Hitler probably valued human life, just had justifications for excluding certain others.
Right.
And you think you could reason Hitler into...
I don't know that I necessarily could.
Why
because
wouldn't he
there are
reason
people,
you into his way?
It might be. I'm not saying that that's not necessarily the case.
Nobody should ever listen to Matt Dillahunty speak about anything ever again. Ever again. All of his logic is completely flawed by his own logic.
How? Not once did I hear him say that was right, just that he felt justified.
If you just listen to what he's saying, you don't even have to really believe in God in this case, even though I'd really like you to believe in God. I'd like you to believe in God of the Bible and Jesus Christ. But let's just get started with a God by recognizing how stupid this is.
Didn't you say at the start that you didn't want this to be about biblical God or GB? That quickly changed.
He can't even say Hitler was actually wrong. But humanists are going to tell believers in a God that we're wrong.
Not wrong, I just don't see that you're right, as there's no evidence that convinces me that what you believe about a God is true.
We are always going to look after ourselves, but who is we? And who are ourselves in that conversation? And we are always wanting to narrow the circle around us and our mates and exclude the other tribe and exclude the other kinds of people. And that to me is a very chilling way of proceeding with a kind of a humanism. Because that's always the danger. Like, who is us? Who are those who we are going to grant with the right to life? And who are those who we are going to say, they do not qualify? And it's always tempting for the humans to say, okay, it's the strong who will make the decision, and it's the weak who must take the hindmost.
We as human beings, at minimum, need to believe in a God because we need to believe that there's somebody going to judge us one day.
What a sad way to live your life. You want to be judged? Sounds like a you problem. I'm happy being a decent human being now and not being punished for stupid things now.
And we kind of need to keep ourselves in check. Because if not, as Matt's shown us today, is that there is no real structure within human beings that we can hold to on our own and that we'll, stick to regardless of how bad things get. Because even in a casual conversation, Matt can't even admit that he wouldn't potentially switch to Hitler's side.
I bet if you asked him, you'd find out. And given how the God of the Bible is, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't switch to being an absolute bunda and owning people as slaves or deciding that a group of folks are inferior and attempting to wipe them all out.
At the same time telling us that he has morals, but that morals don't matter, and just all of this non-belief in any sort of real objective reality that we all know to be. And the reason why we all know there's objective reality is because we all believe there is an ought to treat each other a certain way and an ought not to treat each other a certain way. But unfortunately, humanism and atheism, they don't give us a good foundation to build our ought to or ought not to on, because they'll change. And only the belief in a God, an unchangeable God, which all basic religions have, is a God and an unchangeable God, that God has morals and standards that he sets forth, or she, or whatever.
Right. She, the one true rainbow deity, Lisa the rainbow giraffe, leaf be upon her, whose only real rule is to not be a crappy person, unlike the God of the Bible, who, as an unchanging being, seems to have changed into its own son at one point, and also a Holy Spirit, just like magic. Did you just talk your God out of existence by calling it unchanging?
And that we as people live up to those standards, not just any standard we want. That's stupid, and we as humans should be able to look at the history that we've lived to prove that we're not good at holding a standard.
What history are you looking at? Please don't say the Bible. Please don't say the Bible. That's not history. And if it was, it seems like a lot of God telling people to kill civilizations, take women and do with them what they want, and then throw babies against rocks while being gleeful.
And Matt Dillahunty did a great job as an atheist humanist of telling us all why we should actually believe in a God.
Because you can't think for yourself, and you can't be trusted to make decent decisions without the help of a floating sky being. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
And if you're still with us, hit that like and subscribe button, comment and share, send to a friend. Thanks for watching.
Oh, yeah, do all those things, I guess.
The Christian claim uniquely is that God took flesh and even became a single cell in Mary's womb, became the weak and despised thing for the sake of all weak and despised things. And I think from there you get the principle that humanity in and of itself has a dignity because God has so dignified it. Otherwise, it's us elevating humanity to a certain, position.
By Jove, I think he's got it. Well, I don't know where the questions to destroy atheism were, but it seems like a lot of what Ranty Boy had to say was that non-believers can't have morals, because he doesn't understand how anyone could choose to not be an a**hole without a God telling them not to be. What a shame that it's always a lack of understanding about atheism that makes these folks look quite so silly. I don't think we witnessed any destruction of atheism, just a man who thinks we should believe in a God and Jesus because nothing else makes sense to him. Revlar, that's on you, buddy. Come back when you have some actual questions or proof of a God that will actually destroy atheism. Do you feel like atheism was destroyed here? Let me know in the section below. I'm going to skeptic this as more gaps being filled by a needless God. A big thank you to this month's top level ticks on Patreon. Dark Ether Piao, Tamo, The Barely Bearable Atheist, George, Godless Granny, Addy Rockart, The Enixes, Jakari, Elizabeth, Whiskey Tech Fred, Rick and Stylistic Matthew, as well as all the $3 base ticks and new channel members. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with links to all my other socials, or you can become a channel member by hitting the join button below this video. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically, and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.